Welcome everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group, I'm the advertising manager, and I'm your host today. I want to thank our sponsor today, Tabby Tree Weavers. Thank you, Sandy from Tabby Tree. It's a great store. You guys should go online and check out what she has. And she's been a great supporter of Textiles and Tea. Thank you so much. Today, we will take questions as always. It's the last 15 minutes. If you would, please put the questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. Please put comments in chat. We love those, but I can't always see those questions if they're over there. And today we want to welcome Pat Maley. Pat is what she calls herself is a dabbler. She's involved in spinning, teaching, and as we talk today, you're going to see all kinds of things that she's involved with. At this fiber, Pat's working on it. While teaching textiles and clothing construction and related classes at Edgecliff College and the College of Mount St. Joseph in Cincinnati, she studied weaving and eventually spinning. She's a member of the Guild of Greater Cincinnati, a wonderful guild, by the way, and have been a member for over 50 years. Pat has attended Spin-Off, Autumn Retreat, Convergence, and many other fiber festivals and conferences, both teaching and learning spinning techniques. She achieved her Certificate of Excellence in Hand Weavings, not just one level, but level 1 and level 2. And she has been very involved in being the book advisor for the COE. She collects and fixes antique wheels. You have to make sure you look at the one behind her. She makes spindles of all types, and she dyes fiber, yarn, cloth, knits, crochets, sews, quilts, does sashiko, we're going to talk about that today too, and punch needle embroidery. Supply plaiting and has raised cotton, dye plants, and Angora rabbits. Hey, Pat.
Hi, Kathy. It's nice to see you today.
I'm tired just reading what you do, let alone do what you do. You're a busy woman.
But it's all fun.
It is fun. So while you're doing all that, what are you drinking? What's your favorite tea?
Always cold. I don't like hot drinks, so I am drinking a peach-flavored iced tea today.
Okay. All right. Well, talk about how you got started. In the intro, we talked some about while you were teaching, you learned some of these other things, but what was the beginning of your fiber journey?
The earliest weaving I can remember is on a potholder loom, of course. We all had those, and I lived about 4 blocks from the dime store, so I could walk up and get loopers all the time. And I quickly decided that I making potholders was boring, so I put them together and looped them together to make a swim bag.
Ah,
Then I also remember seeing my grandmother, who lived in Nebraska, and I only got to see her once a year, but she crocheted and tatted. And when I would see her, I would get a little bit of education from her. And then she finally gave me that wonderful little Learn to Weave book.
oh
That
my gosh, I haven't seen that in forever.
I had several copies of it. My mother made all of our clothes, so I learned to sew from her. And by the time I was in about 7th or 8th grade, we had a group of girls who were in Scouts together, and we formed a club and went to learn square dancing. And of course, we needed to have full circle skirts, square dance skirts. And that just happened to be the era that the full circle poodle skirts were popular. So we all made our own skirts. And of course, I did home ec in high school and then went on to home ec in college, as well as education. Basically centered my home ec on textiles, clothing construction, tailoring, and all that good things. So when I started teaching at Edgecliff, I was able to take all of the art courses that I never had enough electives for when I was in school myself. So that's when I learned to weave and spin. And my teacher there and my department chairman were both members of the Weavers Guild. And so I joined the Weavers Guild, and it's been fiber ever since.
Oh, wow. Well, lucky for you, or lucky for the guild too, to have that those kinds of people in the guild. How wonderful.
We've got a wonderful guild.
Do
Our guild owns its own house, and we've owned it since about 97. And so all of our equipment is there, and we have classes going on all the time, which is lovely because you don't have to drag wheels and things. They're already there.
and your guild hosted Convergence. I forgot what year it was.
2000.
2000. Okay.
So
Yeah, y'all hosted Convergence.
we managed to get the house together enough that we could show it off at Convergence, but it was by no means finished being renovated for our use. We, as a guild, are 75 years old this year, and we are planning in September on the 9th, for anybody who's close by, a gathering of the guilds. And we have invited about 10 different guilds who do education to join us at our house. We're putting up a big tent in the parking lot, and we're going to have blacksmiths and glass blowers, wood turners, paper makers, bookmakers, and basket makers, and I don't remember all the rest of them, come and display their wares. And we're going to have a big party for our 75th anniversary.
Oh, congratulations to you all. That's wonderful. Well, let me ask you about, let's start with COE. That's the Certificate of Excellence. It's from the Handweavers Guild of America.
Mhm.
And you received the COE level 1 and level 2.
Mhm.
And you're also the handbook advisor. So this means you really must value the COE process and the value of taking on this kind of a challenge. So if someone asks you, why should I do this? Because it's a boatload of work, isn't it? What would you say to them?
I would tell them that it's a great learning exercise to start with, and that they will be totally surprised as they work through it, how their spinning changes for the better. I was amazed after doing the level 1 exercises, what a difference my spinning was like. I found that it evened out. It just was so much better. And it was fun to do.
Oh, good.
It was a lot of work.
So when did you get your first COE, the level 1?
Oh, I think it was in 97 or 99. And I know I took a break between, it was before Convergence 2000, because I took a break and took time off before I did the level 2, just because we were all so involved with Convergence.
Yeah, I mean, that was 97 is still pretty close to working on Convergence. You were a busy woman then.
It's
Wow.
fun.
So we've got some images coming up, and these are works that were part of the samples you submitted for level 2, I believe. What was your theme? Because on level 2, you choose a specific area to focus in on. How did you choose your area? Why did you choose that?
Well, when I first started working on it, you could submit both levels at the same time. And so I thought I would do it with the exotic fibers, all of the down fibers and alpaca and llama, and, you know, all the, not the 4 normal natural fibers.
Mhm.
And I very quickly realized that was way too much. So I knocked it down to down fibers only, and that was still too much. And I noticed when I was working with the down fibers that bison was, number one, very hard to find, and there was nothing out there. I think when I did a computer search, I found a half of a page about the flammability of bison fiber from one of the universities in the Dakotas. And that was the only thing I found written. And so I thought, oh, this might be fun to do. I'll have to experiment and figure it all out on my own. So I managed to get hold of some of the people at the American Bison Association and made a friend there who supplied me with some fiber. And any place I saw fiber, I bought it because it was really hard to get. And then I found, my granddaughter showed horses at the Ohio State Fair. And one day we were up there at a show, and there was one of those little food kiosks selling bison meat. And I went up to him and I said, what do you do with your fiber? What do you do with the hides? And he told me, and I said, I'm working on this project and I would like to be able to get some bison fiber from you. So he said, I'll sponsor you. And he said, I'll get a hide for you. And as we talked about it, he said he would freeze dry it over the winter over a railing. Normally they salt them and ship them off to be sheared. But he got hold of me the following spring, and we went up and found it. And I also met a small bison. He was about 6 months old. His name was Wooly Nelson, and he had lost his mother at birth, and so he was bottle fed, and he went in and out of the house with the big dog through the dog door. And so Wooly was a pet, and Wooly was out in the pasture with the other calves, and but he had nothing, he didn't want anything to do with them. So we were allowed to go into the corral with him, and I had my granddaughter and one of her friends. And so we're petting the bison, and it's spring, so he's shedding, and the girls are combing the fiber off of him and shoving it into my pockets. But Paula had also took him to the fair on a lead line, and she combed him and groomed him to take him. And so she had bags of his fiber that she gave me to spin. So I managed to get all of the fiber, and my friend in Texas, who was a bison rancher, gave me a lot of information on the actual buffalo, which has on its body 5 different layers of fiber. Everything from the really fine down, which was what I was really thinking I was going to do this project out of. And that's what the scarf there is made from. Very, very fine, completely similar to cashmere or yak down, any of them, but you have to like chocolate brown or chocolate brown or chocolate brown because that's the color it is. They also have a shorter fiber as an undercoat that is more like a medium wool. And that's what the socks that you see there are made from. And then the outer hairs, there are 2 layers of outer hair that are coarser. And then, of course, the top knot and the ankle hair, which is really coarse black fibers. So the lead line that you saw in the first pictures was made from the last 3. I took some of that fiber and bleached it and dyed it. And I managed to get a little bit of a green color, a red color, and a blue color. And I used that coarser fiber. I was hoping to get enough to make a saddle blanket for my granddaughter, but there was no way I could get that much fiber. So I made a spindle bag as one of the projects, and the lead line, the socks, and the cowl there, as well as another very, very, very fine down scarf.
Well, Pat, listening to you talk, I'm struck by the fact that a lot of people would say what you were saying, that there's not much information out there about, you know, the fiber, how to spin it, how to use it. And they would go, I guess I won't do that. I'll go find something else. But you are like, oh, let's go after that one. Let's go find this out.
Yeah, I was very lucky. My husband worked in a hospital at the time and had access to a high-powered microscope with a camera on it. So I was able to actually take all of this fiber and do my own micron counts on it and get photographs of the, photo micrographs of the fibers. So that made it much more interesting. I could, deal with it in terms of fibers that we know, and we know the micron count on and comparison and all of that. Getting it off of the hide that he freeze dried for me was an interesting occupation. Bison shed everything that they have on their body every spring. So they roll in mud to keep the insects off. And as a result, they're coated with mud. So all of the fiber that they have all the way down to their skin is full of mud. And you could take a 5-pound chunk of wool from the bison and put it into a bucket of water and end up with about 2 inches of mud and maybe an ounce of fiber.
Oh my God.
So getting it off, I beat it from the back, I brushed it, I shook it, I beat it some more and tried to get as much mud out as I could, and then just laid it over a large pipe and took scissors and clipped it to get the fiber off. Then I had to sort the fiber.
Oh my gosh. So what about now? I mean, if I wanted to go out and get a skein of bison, could I do that, or is it still pretty?
No, absolutely. Cecil Miskin, who was my friend in Texas with the ranch, has started a company called the American Bison Company, and I talked at length with him about saving some of the fiber for spinners and making yarn for weavers. And you can buy Buffalo Gold, which is his brand, and he's gone to a number of the fiber shows. I know he was in Lexington one year, and but the Buffalo is very available now, and he's convinced a lot of the ranchers who normally that was the one part of the bison they didn't use, and he's managed to have them get him hides so that he has the fiber available.
You were cutting edge there, Pat.
It was a really fun project to do. It was a lot of work. But I'd find one thing out and then that would lead me to another. And it was a really interesting project. I'm glad that I chose that and didn't fall back on one of the ones that, there's lots of information on.
Well, I admire your tenacity. I mean, I would have easily probably given up. That's a lot of work. Good for you. Well, one thing I've noticed is that when we were reading your bio and I hear you talk, you're very much into education. It's a central part of your life. First of all, you were a professor at a couple of universities. So there was the teaching was your livelihood, but you also teach workshops and at conferences and things like that. Why is teaching such a passion for you?
I've always enjoyed teaching, and I remember being in Scouts, and when we'd have projects, my mom was the leader, and her friend was the co-leader, and so the two daughters got to learn everything first, and then we helped with teaching the rest of the kids in the troop. And so I've always done things like that, and went into education in college. I really enjoy teaching, but what's really great now is that teaching for the guild and for conferences and things, you don't have to make up tests and grade them and argue about the results with students. It's just fun teaching. And I think the most fun that I've ever had teaching was with my granddaughter, who when she was 5 decided she wanted to learn to spin. And so I took a Magicraft wheel that kind of bends over. We could get it low enough that she could reach the treadles, and she learned to spin. And she would go with my husband and I to the various state parks in Kentucky and Ohio to do demonstrations for their Pioneer Days. And so when she went the year she was 5, she said, "Can I do that?" And I went, "Okay, fine, you can do that." And she spun, for the 3 or 4 days we were there. So when she was 6, we went through the same process. And after the first day, I could see she was getting a little bit bored with sitting and spinning. And she came over to me, and I had a couple of looms set up, one for me to demonstrate on and one for the kids to use. And she says, "Can I do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll show you how." And she said, "I know how, I watched you." I said, "Okay, show me." And she just amazed me. She showed me exactly how to weave. And as I sat down and went back to my spinning and she was doing the weaving, people would ask her questions. And when I demonstrate, I've got a tape that rewinds in my head all the time. And as I'm listening to her, my tape is coming out of her mouth. And it just blew me away. She was so, 6 years old. She wasn't real comfortable speaking with adults, but this didn't faze her at all. She's now a teacher and teaching 3rd grade.
Really? Oh, wow, really?
I'm
Oh,
hoping,
that's cool.
yeah, I'm hoping to get to her classroom to do some demonstrations for her kids this year.
Oh, man, I cannot believe that 5 or 6. Whew, that's amazing. Runs in the family.
She also did a horse blanket as one of her 4-H projects several years later on the big loom. I had a hard time getting her off of a table loom. She liked, I think, the smallness of it, but she wanted a big saddle blanket. And I said, "Well, you're going to have to do that on a bigger loom." So she did.
So you've talked about teaching and you've taken classes. And so let me ask you this. Would you like taking a class from you? And on the other side of that, would you like to be a student of yours? Does that make sense?
Yes. Would I like to take a class from me? Yes, I would, because I know how I prepare for a class and research. So that would be my ideal teacher. And I often kind of screen teachers by talking to other people who have taken classes to see if it's a teacher that, I would want to take from. Would I like me in a class? I'm not so sure. I think I ask too many questions. I don't think I would.
Well, you're very honest. I don't think I want to ask my teachers whether or not I was a good student. I'm kind of all over the place. So they may have been like, well, maybe. Well, as you had talked about in your bio, and we talked about earlier, you are a dabbler. You've tried a variety of modalities and techniques. And we've got some images here on the left. This is a quilt that you made, and we also have a quilt behind you. And on the right is a piece of jewelry. So when you're doing other crafts, do you feel like they build on each other? Do you think it makes you better for the next modality that you're going to do? Or do they interfere with each other?
The only interference is time to do them. But no, I think everything that I do, I learn something from. It may be a design element or technique or color, materials, creativity, all of it comes together, and I may not use it for a while if I've tried something new, but eventually I'll think, oh yeah, I remember, hey, that might work with this. And so I do think that they all build, all of your techniques and activities build on each other. And I am a dabbler. I try things, like I said, when I was at Edgecliff and I could take art courses, I did enameling and printmaking and spinning and weaving and, everything I could get my hands on, because I was learning a lot about creativity and such. And actually the enameled piece, the circle, is one of the pieces that I did when I was taking enameling at Edgecliff. I really do like to try different things, and I have a tendency, if it's something that I really like, I may start out with something little and then move on and do something a little bit bigger. Just keep trying and keep researching the various techniques.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about fiber people. I've never met a fiber person who did one thing. They either knit or crochet or felt or quilt or we have to do everything.
You do. And it's fun because particularly for me with the Weavers Guild, we have study groups, and we have 2 or 3 study groups probably every week that you can go out and go to and learn a technique if you don't know it, or you've got a whole bunch of people sitting around doing the same thing, and it's just so much fun. And I know that we periodically, well, for example, this past summer we did a summer camp, and we had classes going on every day of the week. And the interaction between the classes and the people in the classes was amazing. It was just so much fun. I know I picked up a couple of new spinners as a result, and I know some of the other teachers did too. So it really is a great way to have to interact and learn new things and try new things.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're talking about your was it your granddaughter?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, okay, I know how to spin, but I want to do something with the spinning. And I feels like fiber people are like that. It's like, okay, I know how to spin, I'll knit. Well, maybe I want to try weaving, or going back the other way. It's like I weave, but I want to know more about that yarn. How does spinning affect that? So it's really a kind of a big circle.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of dabbling in a big circle, you also are a dyer. So you're one of those people of, I want to dye it and I want it dyed the way I want it dyed. So I'm always curious, because it seems like dyers are on this continuum, right? On one end are the precise, systematic, they want to be able to make the same color over and over again. They might be production dyers and that sort of thing. And then on the other end are the playful, oh, let's just kind of make some color. Where are you on that continuum, or do you move back and forth?
I tend to be more serendipitous. I have the dyes that I am familiar with and use over and over, and I know how to manipulate them. Well, you can see all the pinks and purples in the scarves. I know when I mix them, whether I'm going to be really pink or really purple or blue. And so I do tend to be more serendipitous. I do like the chemistry involved in doing a very precise, repeatable dye. I think it's fun to do all the measuring and figure out all the formulas and everything, but I tend to just play with the dye. And obviously you can see in my cakes of yarn there, when those started becoming popular in the stores, I thought, I wonder if I can make some of those. And I did manage to take a skein of yarn and dye it 3 or 4 different colors by segregating the sections. And then there's a little bit of overlap in them that blends the colors. And it was a fun experiment. That was one that I did, I think, last summer. We had some Shetland fleeces donated to the Guild, and that was all the Shetland yarn that I had spun. And I thought, okay, it's all white, let's make it colored. So that was a fun project.
Well, now I'm not a spinner, so my ignorance is going to show here, but can you really tell the difference from like a skein that you spun and a skein you bought at the store when you get ready to dye it?
Absolutely.
What's the difference?
For one thing, when you're hand spinning, you can get a yarn that is almost perfectly even, but there's always a space where maybe there was a nip in the fiber and you didn't quite get it out when you carded it or made it into a roll log or made it into top. So there's some unevenness evident, and the machines don't do that. Thing that goes through the machine comes through very evenly. And so, yes, it is very easy to distinguish between hand spun and machine made. The other thing is that they try to make all these fancy novelty yarns on machines, and they are novelty yarns in that they're done the novelty in them is very evenly spaced and very much alike from skein to skein, whereas when you do a novelty yarn with hand spinning, you're making 3 different parts, and each part has its own characteristics, and your spacing may not be just as even as a machine's is. So yeah, it is easy to tell.
Going along the idea of dabbling, this next image we have is of this gorgeous jacket. That's a great example of sashiko. So first of all, would you explain what sashiko is to people who may not know? And how did you get into this? What led you to this art? Okay,
one of my spinners and I became very good friends, and she's primarily a quilter, and so she got me into a quilting guild. And when there was 1 or 2 summers when there was a big quilt show in Cincinnati, and so we decided we would go, and Pepper Corey was there teaching sashiko, so we took the class. And she had fabric that was already printed with the patterns, and all we did is cut, the square out and did the stitchery. Now, sashiko means little stab, and it's kind of a generic term for all of the different kinds of sashiko there are, and I've found 5 of them so far. You can see the yoke of the jacket is kind of a 6-sided, it looks like a flower, but it's actually called a horned tortoise. And that's the moyusashi, which took clouds and plants and animals and did picture type things from it. Another type of sashiko is hito masashi, and it is a grid-like, you go over, under in 1/4-inch stitches, and then the next row would be, if you started over, under, the next row would be under, over. And depending on how you manipulate those rows, you can end up with a pattern coming out that makes a what they call the persimmon flower. It's kind of a cross-shaped design, but I've done a whole quilt of different Hito Masashi patterns, and it's all simply over, under, straight stitch. Okay, then there is a pattern type of sashiko. The two little squares on the back of the jacket, the kind of pinkish on the left and yellow on the right, they're done on Aida cloth or a woven cloth that has a good spacing to it that you can put the pattern in. They're all geometric patterns. The multicolored diagonals on the back of the jacket, that is called kaguru sashi. And you do the Hito Masashi, and then you weave other colors in to make the colored pattern. And then there is Boro Sashi, which we're seeing a lot of something called visible mending, where you put patches on, and the flowers on the sleeves are Boro Sashi. So as I started playing with the sashiko, and they sell stencils for patterns. And so Joanne and I each bought half of the teacher's stencils, and then we switch them back and forth. And so we can use all of the different stencils. Okay, I'm a ham radio operator, so I know how to solder and do things with wires and such. And every once in a while, well, every meeting I go to, I take a spindle or a lucette or something that I can work on, because frequently the programs are a little bit over my head technically. So I've got something to keep me from fidgeting. And the guys have gotten used to me bringing this kind of thing. And when we got into the Zoom meetings, one day, one of the guys, we were chatting ahead of time, and one of the guys said, "Pat, what are you working on?" And I held it up and showed him, and he says, "Does anything you do in ham radio ever coincide with something you do in your fiber world?" And I went and I thought a minute, and I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I use my soldering iron to cut stencils for my stitchery." And the whole bunch of them just cracked up. They thought that was so funny. But it's interesting to watch them in a meeting, especially the new guys who haven't seen me do a spindle, or I always take, I don't go anyplace without a spindle. And so you see them kind of furtively looking over at what you're doing. And then when they take a break, some of them will be brave enough to come over and say, "Are you weaving, or are you sewing?" Or, "Nope, I'm spinning." And then I explain it.
Oh, so on the sashiko, it looks like you can do both applicate, you can make something and apply it to a cloth, or apply directly to the cloth. Is that right?
Yes, the kind of star-shaped, that's Asanoha. That's the hemp leaf pattern, and it's the most popular of the sashiko patterns. And I did those on pieces of cotton, navy base cotton, and then appliqued that onto the jacket.
That's beautiful. That's just a gorgeous. Now, do you teach this also?
Oh, yes.
Of course.
We have, you know what Rock Day is?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a Rock Day program every year where we do two sessions, two 2-hour sessions, one in the morning and one in the afternoon at the Guild, and any member can take any of the sessions they want. And so sashiko is a new one for me to do. I've done it a couple of times just to introduce it. And I'm kind of putting together a sashiko class where I can teach all 5. Normally, I just teach the moyusashi with a pattern that's stenciled on, but I'm really looking forward to, and I've been collecting some of the work that I've been doing so that I've got examples to do all 5 in a workshop.
Well, we're going to do something a little different right now. I'm going to give you two options and you tell me which of the two either like the best or you do more of or you believe in or
Okay,
whatever. Okay, first one, spindle, drop spindle or a wheel?
it depends.
Now you can't say that for every question.
It reminds me, Maggie Casey always used to say when you'd ask her a question, well, it depends. And I find myself, spindles go with me everywhere. I keep one in the car so that I've always got a spindle with me. If I've got a couple hours, I will sit down at a wheel. My favorite wheel right now is a great wheel. I found a couple parts at we have a parking lot sale every year where you bring stuff in you don't want anymore. And there was this base and about a half size wheel, not a full size great wheel, sitting with the word free on it. And I went like, oh, and I said to its owner, what are you going to do with it if nobody takes it? She says, it's going to Goodwill. And I said, it'll end up in kindling pile.
Yeah.
I brought it home and my husband and I ran around to antique shops looking for parts, and it now is named Minnie because it's small and it's sitting in my bay window and I use it to spin on. So it did get fixed.
Complicated multi-stepped task or quick result task?
Oh, I'll start out with quick results. And a good example is my ply split keychains that I started out with. And then I decided I was bored doing it. So I went into the books and found the pattern for I use it as a pencil holder, and went more complicated. And I tend to start out that way with something, and then gradually, if it's something I like doing, I'll get really involved.
Undo it and start over, or leave it and call a design element?
Depends on how bad it is. It depends again. If I can fix it and make it look like it should, I will fix it. If I'm just starting a project and it's not working out well, I'll often just bag it, start over and try again. But a little bit of both. Sometimes if it works out well, the design element or the mistake becomes a design element. So
animal or plant fiber?
Both. I've raised bunnies and I love the Angora I got from my bunnies. And I've grown cotton, and when I'm carrying a spindle around, it's usually a support spindle and I'm doing cotton on it. So and if it's a new fiber, it's going to be whatever that fiber is. People say, what's your favorite fiber? I don't have a favorite fiber. I like them all.
At least I didn't ask that. Plied or unplied?
Usually plied, because that helps to control the twist. But I keep reading things that say you can't use singles in weaving, hand spun singles in weaving. And right now I've got a huge bag of green cotton that I grew that I have spun into singles, and that when I get it all spun, I'm going to try weaving a top from it and see. I know I've done small pieces like the tea towels, although the tea towels that you showed were plied, but I have been able to weave and with my singles. And if you spin them with enough twist and you get them stabilized by setting them, you can weave with them.
The gauntlet has been thrown down. Don't tell Pat not to do something or that she can't, because she's going to show you. E-spinner or manual?
Oh, I have two e-spinners, but I really like manual the best. And interesting, when I was at Edgecliff in the weaving classes, we never had enough looms. And so one of my off loom projects was to build a loom. And with the help of my husband and my father was an electrical engineer, and he was really came up with some great ideas on how to vary. I showed him what I liked on the looms we had, and I built a 4-harness 40-inch loom as part of a class project. He always wanted to put a motor on it. And when I'd spin, he'd say, "You can put a motor on that." And unfortunately, it wasn't until after he passed away that I got my first e-spinner, but he would be proud of me now because I have one.
Oh, good.
Or two.
Well, you've talked about different fibers and, working on the COE and thinking about something different. Well, what do you think of some of these new fibers, like the soy silk, the plar, and the coconut, that kind of thing?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. A Ply magazine on science came out in the spring, and they had an author. His name is James Perry, or Long Draw James is another name. He is working on his master's degree in sustainable chemistry. And they had him look at all of those regenerated fibers. And as a teacher, I can remember seeing all of the chemicals involved and all of that, but I didn't have the chemistry background, as we talked about earlier, to really know what they do. But his series of articles are really, really well written and understandable for the layperson. And I knew that I was not a fan of any of them. There's something about the feel of the regenerated fibers that I don't like, and I definitely don't like them mixed with wonderful natural fibers. So, but now I have a really good reason for not liking them, and it's the fact that when they're manufactured, it's very polluting, not only in water usage, but getting rid of those chemicals and what it does to the environment when they get rid of them. And he was very good, and all of the articles are just absolutely amazing. I sat down with that magazine when it came, and I opened it up and saw what it was, and I read it from cover to cover in one sitting. I have not seen anything so well written about these regenerated fibers. And we think, oh, well, we're using cotton linters to make rayon, or various things, out the pop bottles to make polyester, and it's all recycling. Well, the pop bottles are recycled, but the fiber that results is not recyclable.
Huh.
So there's all kinds of information like that in the articles. It's the spring edition of Ply magazine.
Do you have it there?
It's called Science.
There you go. There you go.
You can see.
All right.
So it's worth getting.
Well, I'm glad I asked. How timely. Well, what's next for you?
Upcoming in 2 weeks is our gathering of the guilds, where we have all of our guilds in the Cincinnati area coming together. It's really exciting. We're looking forward to it so much. I have gone, because of the summer camp we had, I kind of went back into my computer and dug out some classes that I haven't taught for a while. And I'm thinking it's time to, we've got a whole bunch of new spinners in the guild, young people coming in, and it's time to bring some of those classes back and teach them. So, and I will be, doing all of my fiber things here at home and wherever I go.
Of course, a million things. All right, we've got questions, Pat. Shall we go to those?
Okay.
All right. This is from Carol Whitehouse. I don't know if she has a question or she's just going to sing your praises. She says, I have been so privileged to have Pat as a teacher for spinning and sashiko this past year. A second shout out to Pat. She is generous, a consummate teacher, and has helped my spinning progress. Looking forward to more spinning and learning with Pat. What are some tips for spinning to weave? There was a question in there.
Oh, thanks, Carol. She's one of my new spinners.
Oh,
yes,
hi, Carol. Welcome.
I'm really excited about having her in classes. Tips for spinning. Look at textiles that you have and evaluate the yarns that are in them. And you will, I'm sure, notice that they are very fine. So when you're spinning for weaving, in order to get the drape that you need for clothing and such, you really need to have a lot of very fine yarn.
Another shout out to Pat. This is from Charlene Anderson. I met her when I was an HGA president and she was showing the facilities in Cincinnati for Convergence. It was 1997 and we have been besties ever since. She is amazing. The energy and the knowledge is awe-inspiring. Aw.
Oh, thanks, Charlene, and hello.
Martha wants to know, what are the staple lengths of the different types of buffalo fiber? And what is the difference between a buffalo and a bison?
Okay. In the United States, we can call the American bison a buffalo, but our buffalo is not the same as the Oriental, Middle Eastern water buffaloes, wherever they are. Our buffalo is in the bovine category, like cows and yaks and muskox. Did I answer all of the?
Well, the whole question about buffalo versus bison. Thank you, Martha, because I was wondering the same thing. But she also wants to know, what is the staple length of the different type of buffalo fiber?
The down fibers are about 1/2 inch in length. The next layer, shorter wool-like fibers, were 2 to 3 inches. The outer coat, the longest can be 5-6 inches long, the really coarse ones, and then you have maybe 4 inches on the outer coat that is their quote raincoat. So you've got a whole range of fibers. Some of the down fibers were as long as 1.5 inches, and they were really nice to spin. They were my favorite.
Oh, I was curious about this too. Good question, Mary O'Reilly. How many spinning wheels do you have?
Oh my gosh.
Fess up, come on.
My husband's sitting across the table from me and he says 15, but I suspect that I have more than that because I know I have 8 modern wheels, Ashford, Magicraft, Reeves, all of those. I've got a bunch of antique wheels, probably 8 or 9 of those. I've got some winders to include with those. I really haven't done a count in a while, so I don't know.
That's not a good sign. Kathy Kuhn wants to know, she says, I love the step behind you. And when we first saw you, we were both, all of us, all the staff was like, well, look at those steps. They're amazing. They're pretty awesome back there.
The tree came from Indiana. It was shaved with antique tools that my husband had, and a friend did the design and put it together for us. The tree actually has some kind of a bullet in it. It was out where they were doing hunting, and it's one of my favorite places in my house.
I knew this was going to come up. We should have talked about it when we said it. Betsy wants to know, what is Rock Day? Can you give us a brief? What is Rock Day?
Sure. Rock Day rock was a German name for the distaff that holds fiber. And Rock Day was the day after the Epiphany that the women went back to work after the holidays. And
it's celebrated, a lot of guilds celebrate it. And they usually have, open houses and that kind of thing. Oh, what was the name of that chemist that wrote the article? Anne-Marie Mullen wants to know.
James Perry, Perry,
Okay.
so goes by Long Draw James. He's quite a spinner.
I gotta find that article. I want to read that too. Mary O'Reilly came back and said, awesome. What is your favorite wheel? Let me guess. It depends.
It depends. I absolutely love my great wheel. It sits in my dining room, and a lot of times in the morning, I will come down and pick up a couple of roll-logs, which I keep handy, and just start spinning even before I've had breakfast. It just,
Wow.
it grabs me. I hadn't learned to spin on it when I was learning to spin, and it wasn't until after I'd spun cotton for quite a while, because cotton takes a long draw, and so does a great wheel, that and spinning on the support spindle with the long draw really improved my long draw technique and made it much easier to go to the great wheel. But I think if I had only one wheel I could take with me, I would grab the great wheel. It would be hard to transport, but I'd manage.
Well, let me ask you kind of a question around that. It's brand new spinner. I've never spun before. I want to start learning how to spin. Where do I start?
Oh, I've changed my ideas on that over the years. I used to start with drop spindles to teach drafting and such. But we used to have enough wheels at the Guild that we could send them home with our students. And they weren't real expensive. Now they're too expensive to do that. The wear and tear on them is just too great. So I have changed, and now I start with spinning on a wheel. And I start my beginners by teaching them to draft sliver, and to sit and treadle on the wheel until they can make it start and stop and go fast and slow. Then we put them together and get started. But drop spinning is a good way as well to learn. Or the support spindle. I really like the support spindle because it's right here, and you can sit and listen to Zoom and spin.
Listen to Textiles and Tea. There you go.
Exactly.
Karen LeBlanc has a couple of questions about the e-spinners. Those are the hot tickets right now. Yeah, if you're thinking about coming to Convergence, they're going to be there. If you want to test drive some of them, come to Convergence and you can check out the e-spinners. But Karen wants to know, can you recommend an economical e-spinners? Because some of them are very expensive. And then after you answer that, she has another question about e-spinning. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. My first e-spinner was a SpinTech that Gord Lendrum has bought that company, and he doesn't make them very often. I also have the Hanson e-spinner, and I really like it. I will say the SpinTech was noisy, but my Hanson, I can hear the television when I'm spinning. I haven't done an e-spinning class, and that's one I've been kind of thinking of putting together. And I've seen some of the little 3D printed ones. And I know when some of the spinning wheels were coming out as travelers or transportable or folding and such, some of them were so small or so lightweight that when you sat down to spin on them, they just walked away from you.
Oh.
And I haven't tried them, but I've seen some of those little plastic ones, and my feeling is that if you really get started drafting hard, that you're probably going to pull it off the table. I don't know, because I haven't tried them and I need to do some exploration. But that's one of the things, is if you're looking at them and you're trying them, try doing some really hard spinning on them. Same way with a wheel. If you're looking for a wheel, sit down and try spinning on it and see how it feels to you. Is it the right height? You know, are you, does it treadle well? Can you reverse it easily and start it and stop it and that kind of thing? And again, I think the same thing holds true with spindles. You know, I'll see spindles and I think, wow, that's a cool spindle, and go to try to spin on it, and it's not so cool to spin on. Wheels the same way, and I'm sure e-spinners are the same. And I'm sorry, but that's the best I can do. I just haven't done any on anything small, but I do love my Hansen.
Well, I think it's always great to give an opinion of what you like best or what characteristics this loom or wheel or whatever has. But the bottom line is, like you said, you just got to go find out what fits you, whether it's a wheel or a loom or, you know, whatever.
Exactly.
So, we still have questions, but we need to stop for today. I know, I can't believe that. Pat, thank you so much for being on here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really have had fun doing this. And thanks to my friends who are listening and asked questions, Charlene and Carol. And again, thank you for having me.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in person someday. I want to see, I have to be honest, I am dying to see the building in Cincinnati.
Oh.
And Karen, sorry, Karen, I didn't get to that. There was questions about how does that happen? And Karen, I would encourage you to contact the Guild. It's a great story. And there's all kinds of stories around it. So, but thank you for sharing everything today, Pat. And we appreciate you being here. And I do want to say thank you to your sponsor. That we really appreciate Tabby Tree Weavers. Sandy Lemon, we thank you so much for sponsoring Textiles and Tea. You've been a great support since we started, and we do appreciate it. Check out her business, Tabby Tree Weaver, and she has great yarns, and you spinners will love what she has. Thank you so much. If you would like to sponsor an episode of Textiles and Tea, or your guild, your business, please go to our website, weavespindye.org, and look for sponsoring Textiles and Tea. We have a tab just that's Textiles and Tea, and you can choose your date, choose your speaker, and be a sponsor. We'd appreciate that. We have Spinning and Weaving Week and Convergence coming up. It's amazing. Spinning and Weaving Week, it would be October the 2nd to the 8th. It is a week of vendor booths, thread talks, artist studios. If you've not seen some of those, they're wonderful to see where people create. It's wonderful. We have our own fashion show, and it's bring, you know, show what you brought. You know how your guild has show and tell. That's what this is. You know, show us those. We had shoes the last time, you know, show us those socks, those mittens, the scarves, the dish towels. We love sharing everything that you've made. So join us with that. You can sign up now. It's open to, you can see everything for a whole week, 7 days of a lot of programming, and you can get all that for $25. We also have classes. Those were added last year, the Art Sparks, and they are anywhere from 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and they are $10 to $20. You can also register to attend the artist tours, and those are wonderful. You can do that. And again, registration's open. You can go in and sign up for whatever you want, and it's a great week. Thank you so much. Thank you for your donations, and if you've joined, we appreciate that. As you've heard me say, Textiles and Tea, Careers in Textiles, Spinning and Weaving Week, all those events happen through the donations and your membership, mostly the donations. Those things are a little bit more than what donations can cover. So we appreciate whenever you make a donation to the Fiber Trust. It goes for a lot of things. It also helps us give scholarships to students to go to Convergence. And we appreciate all of those. If you want to make a donation or you want to join, you can go to weavespindye.org and you can do all of that there. Next week, we have Emily Trujillo. She is a weaver, a rug weaver from out west, and she's going to talk about her skills and how she's taken an old time tradition and added her own special spin on that. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, as always, happy tea.